Hello, and welcome everyone to the book launch for The Ripple Effect in Action, What 7 Parent Leadership Initiatives Learned from Participatory Evaluation. We are grateful to the Parent Leadership Indicators Project funders, the W.K. Kellogg Foundation, the Annie E. Casey Foundation, the Hagedorn Foundation, and the Peppercorn Foundation. Without their partnership and support, this wouldn't have been possible. I'd also like to briefly mention, if you have any questions throughout this conversation, please use the Q&A chat function, and we'll be collecting your questions, and there'll be a question and answer period at the end of our conversation. And we're really happy to answer any questions you might have. So please don't forget to do that throughout. I'd also like to introduce myself. My name is Dr. Wendy Perez. I'm a Senior Research Associate for New York University's Metropolitan Center for Research on Equity and the Transformation of Schools. And I'm really excited to talk about this book today. We're fortunate to have Ann Henderson facilitating this conversation and 5 incredible and dynamic parent leaders who will also be speaking. And I wanted to talk a little bit about some of what we found when we're looking at evaluating parent leadership initiatives. So what we found was a problem was that even though we knew that parent leadership initiatives were doing wonderful work in changing families and communities, there was still issues with documenting the process and the impact and also understanding how they did it. And so an action that was taken by the Parent Leadership Indicators Project and that was co-created with parent leaders was several actions. First, a theory of change was created, capturing the ripple effect. Second, an evaluation framework and indicators to match the theory was co-created. Also, data collection tools using participatory evaluation methods in collaboration with Dialogues in Action. And lastly, a parent leadership evaluation network to use these tools. So this book describes how PLIs use participatory evaluation tools and what they discovered when they did. So what these 7 parent leadership initiatives evaluated was their impact, successful practices, and ways to be more effective. What was their secret sauce? Providing a second family for parents to develop into leaders. This strengthened families, healed past trauma, and enabled parents to find and strengthen their voices. This book is a story of how just parents transformed into powerful leaders and changed their families and communities. So what will we do today? We're going to interview 5 dynamic parent leaders about their experience. We're going to dip into the major findings from the book. We're going to sum up the book, and we're going to have some time to answer your questions. And now I'd like to introduce Ann Henderson. Ann Henderson's specialty is the relationship between families and schools and its impact on student success in school and through life. She co-authored the best-selling book, Beyond the Bake Sale, The Essential Guide to Family-School Partnerships. Ann?
I'm just thrilled to be here today. This is really exciting. Am I unmuted? This is really exciting to be here with all of you out there in the audience and our panelists and the Parent Leadership and Evaluation Network that co-created with us all of the work that we're going to be talking about today. This is a list of the 7 members of the Parent Leadership Evaluation Network, and there's 7 very different organizations. And among them, they have achieved some remarkable results and victories. They've passed minimum wage increases. They've headed off big budget cuts for children and families. They passed the first ballot initiative in the country to expand access to affordable childcare. One of them won $190 million in flood control to improve living conditions in their neighborhoods. And another replaced zero tolerance discipline with restorative justice, and that's just to name a few. Now with us today are, as you can see, they go all across the country, north and south, east and west, and 5 of them are going to be with us today. And then we want to just describe briefly the participatory evaluation process that they went through to develop this book. They attended 2 in-person trainings with Dialogues in Action. our partner from Portland, Oregon, and selected existing indicators and created new ones. You can see a little sample of their work over there on the side. Then they designed in-depth interview questions and practiced interviewing. They went home and gathered data with a stratified sample and did their interviews and came back to identify their big stories and next steps and get started on writing their individual reports. Each report is a different chapter in the book. Next. You can see that this is a very diverse sample of parent leaders who were interviewed, and together they represent the entire population of parent leaders that our PLEN members have been working with. So many different backgrounds and histories and experiences are captured here. Now our panel today is Sonia Lennox from Parent Ambassadors in Washington State, Rosa Grelier from Community Organizing for Family Issues in Chicago, Shani Cooley from Parents for Public Schools in Mississippi, Luva Alvarez from the Parent Leadership Training Institute in Rochester, New York, and Erica Gallegos from Organizers in the Land of Enchantment in New Mexico. So now I'm going to throw out a few questions to our panelists. Rose, tell us about what your most important finding was.
Well, they were all important, but I think that one thing that stood out for me was how overwhelmingly parents who are facing very difficult challenges were at the forefront of making positive policy and system change. And even though they knew more than likely they would not get the credit for that change, or as the policies or new laws took place, they wouldn't even get an honorable mention, they were still right there, ready, willing, and able to make the change that would ultimately have a positive impact on their communities.
Wow. Shani, what about you?
Our aha moments, I ditto what Rose said, but our aha moment was that the work that we do is definitely working. It's worth the investment in parents to help to ensure our children get quality education. And we also realize that the things that they get out of our trainings hit our focus areas dead on, which is leadership development. They become leaders. We've had parents who were very quiet to become school board members and never thought about it until after our trainings. Of course, we educate and keep them informed on what's going on around the state and around the country. And they become advocates, and they organize, and they want to do more, not just for their child, but for the whole state of Mississippi. So what we're doing is working, and our parents are really appreciative that they get to learn more and they're able to do more in their schools.
Wow, thank you, Shani. Did anything surprise either of you? Rose?
Rose, go ahead.
I wouldn't say it surprised me because I'm actually one of those parents who has gone through our trainings. And so I know the impact, given the fact that I was in a place of disparity when I was diagnosed with cancer. And I absolutely understand the impact that it has to be empowered, to see the leader in you and then to see it manifest through the changes that you are making that help so many people. But just to see that there are so many other parents whose story may have been different, but the impact was absolutely the same.
Wow, thank you.
Again, ditto, Rose. just, it's surprising how people, like when I went through our training, I came in with the intention on a set number of children that I wanted to help their parents to figure out some issues. And that's every parent come in there thinking about their child or their child's class. But by the end of the training, by day 2 of our training, they are ready to take on the world. So it surprises me when they are surprised in themselves that they can do this, and it doesn't take much for them to do this. So it's always a shocker to see the parents when they have those light bulbs that go off in their heads, that they're realizing it's more to it than just doing homework at home.
A lot more.
A lot more.
So what kind of space did you create for parents to grow into these powerful leaders? Luva?
For us at Greater Rochester, we provided a safe space for our parent leaders that was one that was diverse. It allowed the parent leaders to learn how to identify and address their biases. We thought that was very important for us in that structure and on this journey. We also learned that the data that they learned helped them to recognize, identify institutional racism as well through this process. So we just created an environment where parents came from different backgrounds, different socioeconomic status, different areas of the Greater Rochester area. That was very important to us. We had seniors, we had young, we had different backgrounds, but it gave us a more of a class or an environment where people can learn from each other in a better way, as opposed to just everybody being the same way. And that in itself and in the finance was just empowering in how people reacted to each other week to week, and then just how they began to develop I guess friendships and just an understanding of other people's in other areas of the Greater Rochester area.
How long did it take for them to start to be comfortable with each other? I mean,
So,
talking about biases is tough stuff.
yeah, it is, and it is, and so it's really awesome to see it just happen naturally, the way it just happens. But if I would have to sit here and give you a time frame, I would say within maybe 2 to 3 weeks, you start to see people beginning to really relax a little and really begin to just like take a step back and really begin to appreciate people, appreciate other people's backgrounds and where they come from. And it's not easy, right? Because when you first come in for the first time for class, you're like, who are this person? And, you're looking around the room. But when people start to unpeel, unlayer everything, people begin to become more relaxed and they want to learn more about the person sitting next to them and what they're doing and where they come from and what their backgrounds are. And so that they could become more knowledgeable or be part of the solution and not the problem.
Wow, that's great. Sonia, did you have a similar experience with parent ambassadors?
Yeah, yes, we did. I think that because of the size of our cohort that is relatively small, we only have 20 ambassadors every year. We can give them that ongoing coaching throughout the year and that personalized support. We do an every other week call where we call every ambassador and we check in and find out how their family's doing, ask about little Susie, you know, if she's over her cold, and just really talk to them about things that are happening in their family. And they've really told us that this gives them a sense that they really mattered. And they also feel like they're really nurtured and cared for through this process, and that somebody really cares. The other thing that we do is at our first face-to-face conference, we really focus on that bonding and creating a sense of family. We choose retreat centers that have like that limited Wi-Fi and limited like outside influence. And during the day we do trainings and of course lots of community builders. But I think in the evening is where it really comes together. We bond over games and stories. And this really leads to, I think, a sense of strong acceptance and belonging, and just kind of that really big sense of family. We have had a lot of parent ambassadors that have told us, you know, if something tragic happened tomorrow, I know that the first people to show up would be the parent ambassadors. And even if they weren't in my group, I know that they would be the first ones to be there. And they feel like this bond with their peers, but they also feel like they're really a part of something bigger than themselves.
What did they tell you about how that environment felt to them?
They talk about having like that second family and knowing that if they called any one of the staff or even one of the parent ambassadors, that they would be right there. A really good example is we had one of our parent ambassadors from our first year cohort. We're now starting our 12th. His house had burned down, and they put out a call to action for anybody that was willing to donate anything. And parents that they didn't even know him were donating things and trying to help and seeing what they could do in their communities because he was one of us. He is family.
Yeah.
Yeah, that second family thing really is the secret sauce, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yes.
So how did parents describe their journey? How did they characterize how they felt before they entered into becoming parent leaders, and then after? Erica at Ole in New Mexico.
Good morning, everyone. So in interviewing and collecting the data from our members, the thing that we heard consistently is that often parents felt as though they had made some wrong choice in their life that put them in the situation that they were in. So maybe they didn't go to college, or whatever that choice they felt that they had made, they felt that it was that was the reason that they were in the situation, not being able to afford childcare, or not having spent the last 10 years trying to get their bachelor's degree because they can only take one course every semester. And so that was the consistent story that we were hearing from our members: a lack of self-worth, being fearful, feeling isolated and alone, or not fitting in, or just simply being in survival mode. And the growth that we found our members reporting to us is that they were gaining that confidence and self-awareness, and an increased appetite to wage war for social and economic justice. Members repeatedly expressed a sense of feeling healed through this work, feeling self-aware. So if I can read one quote in particular, One member said to us, I think one of the biggest things for me is learning my issues are systemic, not my own shortcomings. Early childhood education is expensive, even for a 2-income household. It's not that I made bad choices. It was learning that people similar to me are struggling with the same things. And so that really was consistent through the conversations that we were having with our members.
And that kind of revelation, one to the other, talking about shared struggles, that second family you created really allowed that to happen, didn't it? It's not the sort of thing you would turn to someone you barely know and start talking about.
Definitely.
And you might gain insights that way that you hadn't really thought of yourself by talking to others.
Right.
Luva, how did PLTI parents in Rochester describe their journey?
So in the greater Rochester PLTI area, I think, well, I know that parents felt empowered. And I'll use that word a lot because that's what the journey is when you go through this 20-21 week process. It's an empowerment from day one, from the retreat all the way down to graduation. If I could read something in the book that I love that we got from one of our parents, they said, before PLTI, I didn't embrace my right to reach out and connect with people in positions of power. Thanks to PLTI, I don't hesitate to pick up the phone or send an email to someone in town hall. PLTI gave me a sense of security in doing it. And that's just like, that right there is
powerful.
Yes, it is. And that's like many parents in our organization or in our group who went through the training echo that. I have a story, and I don't want to stay too long, but I think it's something that goes to this. My first time meeting one of the parent leaders, I interviewed her, and she asked a question. She said, hey, why am I being interviewed? Who nominated me for this class? And I don't need this class. And I'm like, oh, your school principal did. And she was like, well, I don't think I need this class. And she went ahead and filled out the application, and and she showed up on Monday for our Saturday retreat, and she was sitting in the room. She was very distant. She participated in everything, but she really just was not understanding why she was on this journey at all. Moving forward, week 1, she said, what, I'm not coming back anymore. She decided to come back. Week 2, she said the same thing. I'm not coming back anymore. Then after the week 4, she started to be a little bit more comfortable and starting to see like, wait, hey, maybe I do need this. And she was afraid to do public speaking with her project and stuff like that. But moving forward, she graduated, and she has been the best advocate you could think of in our community of Rochester. When she graduated, she immediately went to her senators, her legislators, her council people in her community, asked how she can clean up her community, because her community was filled with prostitutes and drugs and pills and stuff, like needles all over the floor where kids where her child was playing. And she organized this community cleanup, like right away after graduation, right? She was just like empowered to do that. And then from there on, she's just been on this journey. She's been in Albany. She's been, legislating. She's been talking, advocating for better community opportunities for children in her community and others. And it's just been phenomenal how this program allowed her to get to that, especially for someone who really said, I did not want to be in this program. Like, she was done the Saturday, but she came back. She kept coming back. But
That's
she
awesome.
really didn't understand why she was there.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yes.
Rose, do you have anything to add to that? What kind of effect does this have on children?
So, I really think the stories, although they may be different from person to person, there is still that same outcome, how people went from living in fear or feeling powerless or being overwhelmed or feeling like their voice didn't matter, they didn't matter, to empowerment. And I know a lot of the folks that we interviewed talked about how the Kofi training not only empowered them to see themselves as leaders, but to advocate for their family and their community in a way that they never thought that they would be able to do. And how also racially it allowed them to see other cultures through different eyes. It allowed them to see people not as a problem, but as a resource or as a comrade or a partner, that they could work together to make this change that oftentimes we don't believe we have in common, but it helped them see it through that fresh eye that says we're better together than we are separately. And so I think that was the impact across the board, although the various stories may have had a little different journey, but we ended up at the same place, and that was empowered as parents.
And I bet this has a powerful impact on the children as they watch their parents go through this kind of transformation, and they start to think, well, I'm going to be somebody too.
Absolutely. I can say that with my own story, but as I was interviewing parents again and again, and oftentimes multiple generations, we have a lot of grandparents who they raise their children, and now they're in a position that they have to raise their grandchildren and even sometimes great grands. And I know I'll use my own situation. My daughters had to watch me go through some very dire times with all the chemo and radiation. And to see me now advocating for things to change in their school, and then citywide, statewide, and then nationally, I actually became a hero in my own home and in my own community. And so many other parents shared that very same perspective, that now they're the go-to person in their community. They're the one that everybody counts on for the answers, or at least the resources to find the answers. So absolutely.
Thank you so much for that, Rose. So now how are you going to use what you learned through this participatory evaluation process and through listening to all your parent leaders tell you about the experience they've had to strengthen your work to make your organizations even more effective? Shawnee?
So with our aha moments and looking through our parents' feedback, we decided to add a community organizing module. And we launched that last fall, and everybody really appreciated the understanding of our school funding and how it works, and where the shortfalls are from that one module. We also last year had our parents paying close attention to who was running for office and making sure that they were held accountable when they say that they're a public school supporter, that when they get in their seats, that they don't backtrack when it comes to education issues. So we want to continue to mobilize our parents and take them to the Capitol and let them speak to our legislators, and continue to hold them accountable to do what they said they were going to do when it comes to our education system.
That's great, Shawnee. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Sonia, what about parent ambassadors? What are you all going to do with what you've learned?
We feel that we need to continue to invest in our staff so that we can give them the skills to support our parent ambassadors where they are. We'd like to send our coordinators to trainings like conflict resolution, white privilege, how to handle domestic violence and abusive partners, and where to find resources so that we have a knowledge of that so that we can help our parent ambassadors when they come to us. A couple other things we knew but really came to light were the low numbers of males in our programs, and that we really need to have a more formal alumni program. So with that, we're currently trying to reach out to more male role models by reaching out to the fathers, trying to get just more male involvement with our parent ambassador program. We also realize that our parent ambassador alumni are highly valued, but really need more support. One of the possible strategies that we thought of was to start setting up a monthly conference call for the alumni. But a more ambitious concept that we're really talking about, of course, if we secure additional funding, is to establish an annual parent ambassador reunion with all 220 of our ambassadors who've gone through the program. And we feel this would really help them to be able to stay connected, provide greater follow-up training, and it would allow us to better support them with their continued advocacy work.
That's great. I think that really will take your work to the next level.
Yeah, we're hoping.
Erica, do you have anything to add in terms of what PLEN is planning to do?
Yeah, so in speaking with our members, another theme that we found throughout our conversations and our interviews is that our members really felt a deep hunger for politics, and they felt through their growth and through our organizing in the community, they realized their own political influence, and they want more of it, right? So the thing that we have been talking about and the members have been asking for is, for a sort of political boot camp, expanding our endorsement process. So we have both a C3 and a C4 at Olay, doing a lot of that work with our members, especially, our folks that go through our citizenship program that are not able to vote yet. Them having that political influence through the endorsement process and expanding that with them. And then also the thing that I think we were most surprised about is the fact that we need to be much more explicit in how our work is impacting gender and racial equity, ensuring that we're much more explicit, that comes up a lot more in our work, so that our members in turn can articulate that themselves, how this work through early childhood education is impacting the broader, political environment in New Mexico, and impacting gender equity, racial equity. That we realized that we weren't as explicit, and that our members couldn't necessarily always articulate how each part of our work is going to impact those things, or does impact those things. And then, of course, we learned some of the things that we do really well, building community and such. And so definitely doing more of those things, right?
That's always encouraging to get that pat on the back and know what you're doing. Thank you so much, all of you. We're now going to move to having some readings because these chapters in the book that are their reports are really inspiring to read, and we want to give our audience a feeling of just a taste of that. Sonia, would you read that section on "My Voice Matters, I Am Worthy"?
Sure, thank you. Under My Voice Matters, through the Parent Ambassadors program, parents discovered the power of their voice and began to advocate and use their influence on behalf of the children and families in their community. Parents considered this the most important feature of being a parent ambassador. Many of our ambassadors shared that they had gained confidence and the skills to speak up and be heard. As a result, ambassadors met regularly with their lawmakers, testified at the state capitol on bills that were important to them, and met with key policymakers. Through the interviews, many ambassadors shared how they were afraid to speak up at first, but once they found their voice, they saw their true power. Ambassadors felt honored that they were also a voice for parents who are excluded from the consideration of decision makers. When ambassadors found their voice, it not only made them effective advocates and change agents, but it also revealed to them that they could accomplish what they hoped to achieve for themselves and in their communities. Finding their voice led parents to share their stories, pursue new employment opportunities or careers, and continue to advocate for parent voice and leadership in the K-12 system. Clearly, finding their voice is a positive impact for parent ambassadors and the strength of our program. And then under I Feel Worthy, parent ambassadors demonstrated a growing and strengthening sense of self-worth and personal value that energized and mobilized them to step into their influence on behalf of their community. The data from our interviews revealed that parent ambassadors felt a sense of growing personal dignity as a result of participating in the program and a renewed experience of mattering. As parents are building relationships with community leaders and principals, legislative staff, they feel heard, valued, and important. Parents are being recognized in their communities by officials and community members. This experience fundamentally shifts the beliefs of parents in their value to the community. That shift has impact throughout the community. And because parent ambassadors are gaining greater self-worth, they are looking at themselves in a different light. They are feeling a sense of accomplishment. They're returning to school and applying for jobs that accept their worth. And this is causing a ripple effect, not only within their family, but throughout the communities. And when people feel better about themselves, they can live their lives to the fullest. So many of our parents that we work with in the ambassador program have been beaten down, and we see our job as one of building them back up. It's not solely skill building, it's listening and caring about someone. And this discovery has tremendous ramifications for any community building efforts. In order for system and policy level change to happen, there needs to be advocacy and voice from parents. In order for parents to use their voice effectively, they need to experience a self of renewed value and worth. And this understanding must be part of the theory of change for any initiative aimed at community change. Thank you.
That's deep, Sonia. Thank you. Erica, I loved your section on Fight the Power.
Thank you. Yeah, we named each of the sections after a song that we felt was fitting. So the data reflected that members are exhilarated by the ability that they have developed to change the world. The data made clear that many of the members have never before spoken with elected officials and did not know that they could pick up the phone, call their representative, and make requests or demands. The data showed that participation in candidate endorsement interviews and House meetings in which they discussed policy with elected officials creates formative experiences that demystify the political process, crystallize members' understanding of their political power, and whet their appetite for political action. The data also made clear that engagement in partisan electoral activity and accountability sessions with elected officials gives members stamina to weather defeats and to endure lengthy campaigns. Members almost uniformly expressed a sense of bravado or an underdog spirit, providing data that clearly indicate the membership's sense of community and cohesion at OLE. As one member said, in Spain, OLE is a very brave word. When the bulls charge you and go by, you say, OLE, we're brave because we challenged the bull. And who's the bull? The government. This finding is significant because OLE's purpose is to make change. Our members' belief that they are effective change agents is a sign of yet another critical ingredient of the organization's success, a cohesive membership with a shared excitement of embracing challenges and confronting powerful opponents, as well as a belief that our power will continue to grow, allowing us to imagine more ambitious accomplishments to come in the years ahead. This finding is also significant in relation to OLE members' ability to make changes within their own lives. As we saw in the first finding, OLE members have recognized that they are not at fault for many of the challenges they face that are a result of institutional racism, gender discrimination, and other structures that have been placed in their way. Thus, this fourth finding demonstrates how our members have discovered their own power to make changes in their communities and in turn to make changes in their own lives.
And so that comes full circle, doesn't it? As they build their own strength and confidence and go out and confront the powers that be about things that are wrong, they're also looking into their own lives and making changes within.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Luva, I loved this one, moving from being a worrier to a warrior.
Yes, hi. Thank you. We love this one too as well. What we found from the warrior to a warrior is PLTI parent leaders recognize the individual value that they bring into the work and feel accurately prepared and responsible for change making. PLTI alumni in interview after interview speak at warriors. They are empowered, active, and concerned. They are change makers on behalf of their children and for their communities, and they speak as being enlisted in a larger movement for systematic change. As one alum shared, before I got involved with PLTI, I was in a periphery. Now I'm helping to lead the change. The PLTI experience provided the opportunity for parents to find their power. Alumni told us that their belief in their own abilities were reinforced. They realized that they can do civic work. Alumni described this transition in the following ways. Now I see myself and others see me in a person in the community. Another one, now I see my role as a parent leader as one to bring others together on common ground. I made a conscious decision to be more embracing, not too pushy, and meet others where they are and grow together. Another parent said, PLTI helped me to move from concern to activism. And this, in their growing commitment to make change, alumni experience new worries about the time it takes to make a change and about how daunting it can be to complete the change necessary to bring about equity. Answering a question about how he or she felt about the community he or she built through PLTI, one alum said, empathy is that to emotion. This was perhaps one of our compelling findings because it speaks to the new or the real daunting, a feeling both action and strength, yet also of worthy and concern. Knowledge gained through the PLTI also gave parent leaders pause, realizing the old chestnut, which great power.
Thank you. So that's quite a transformation that parents experience. And you think that deep level of moving from being somebody who's worried all the time and not sure how things are going to turn out to understanding that there's somebody who can do something about it is one of the most profound effects of your work, and that sustains parents through those long dry spells where they're working on things and nothing seems to be happening and it's so daunting.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Shawnee, I know that the idea that strong schools create strong communities is a founding principle of Parents for Public Schools. So tell us what you had to write about that.
More aware of the far-reaching impact of education, they are more likely to see how essential quality public schools are to the very heartbeat of their community. When parents gain additional information about public education and its desired outcome, they take a larger perspective and begin to see the close connection between quality public schools and a healthy community. In our interviews, we heard that initially, parents tend to focus on schools for school's sake, i.e., is my child making good grades? Are his or her grades good enough to get into college? Do we have good teachers? It represents another area of growth for parents to move beyond that focus and to understand more fully the economic and social impact of undereducated and undereducated citizens on the places where they live and raise their families. One interviewee said, "This work is so important because without quality public schools, we wouldn't have successful communities, successful neighborhoods, successful households, a public will, a better functioning society, or even meaningful conversations." One parent shared how this work has strongly reinforced what I already felt. My school and this community are my legacy. We recognize that as parents gain leadership skills and the confidence to use them, their leadership activities are not limited to school or home concerns. They apply those skills in other areas of their lives and communities. They become more engaged citizens.
That has a lot of implications for the health of our democracy, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
A lot
Absolutely.
of people feel left out and marginalized and helpless. They can fall prey to all sorts of, troubling thoughts and attitudes and behaviors that don't advance our being able to live equitably and comfortably together.
And when they get the sense that their voice matters, they become more aware of what they're doing in their community and how it is affecting not just their household, but the entire community.
Thank you, Shani.
You're welcome.
Rose.
Hi.
I loved this one, putting on my cape.
Yes,
You hinted, oh, there you go. You hinted at that earlier when you were talking.
Yeah, absolutely. Putting on my cape. So Kofi trained parents became the go-to resource for their families, the schools, and the communities. And that made them feel in turn like sort of superheroes. Parents report feeling like they are making a difference, so much so that they need capes, like superheroes, said one father who is active on Chicago's South Side. I used to be a destroyer of my community, but having come through prison, other experiences, and coming to Kofi, with my new family, I have learned to be a rebuilder of my community. My older children did not get my full attention, but my younger child now will know that his father is here and see him as a leader. Another example is one of the Kofi trained parents talks about one of the schools that she helped to advocate for children at risk being suspended because she is familiar with the new state law, the SB 100, because she helped to pass it. And Kofi trained parent leaders helped to pass this initiative. The law requires that school districts move away from the expulsions and discipline policies, including zero tolerance policies. The parent has successfully prevented at least one suspension in school. The significance of this finding is that Kofi parents feel they have a purpose and are respected in their role and provide resources to their communities. They've become better informed to often help people who are assumed historically to be unimportant, marginalized, communities that lack resources and knowledge. Yet Kofi's work shows that when parents have significant information and resources from parent leaders, and their efforts inspire other parents to get involved. And their leadership and work in the community changes, thus creating more leaders for change. Moreover, the parent leaders see themselves as having value and worth in their community, which many did not feel prior to this leadership training and the work that they've been able to accomplish. And so we can safely put on our capes.
Oh, thank all of you so much. You've been wonderful. Rose, do you have anything to say about the sort of process of going through this participatory evaluation? Has it been helpful?
Oh my God. So let me just say from my heart, this entire initiative, this is just the beginning as far as I'm concerned. This work is so crucial and so important. And I'm hoping that everybody gets this book so that you can, we've had a few minutes now, but to really see the transformation, and the best is yet to come. It is my hope that this will prove what we've been saying for a long time, that parents are at the beginning of almost every positive change within policy work that is taking place. But oftentimes they aren't given the credit for that. And we think that this initiative will give the data, will change those real life stories, what's really happening on the ground, into the data that people can see how much parents are important in this work. But even more, the transformation and positive impact that they've not only had within themselves and for their communities and schools, but that they have had in changing the dynamics of how positively policies and systems can work together. So I'm so excited. This is Healing Central. And through this work, we're not only going to be strengthening families and communities, but for generations to come, we're going to make this world a better place.
Oh, thank you so much, Rose. I know we felt from our side on the staff, working with all of you, that it was just a deeply gratifying and insightful and inspiring process.
Absolutely.
To learn this and really spend time talking with our parent leaders and finding out the deep impact this has had on their lives. We just want to sum up a little bit about what we learned about the impacts on our parent leaders and on the implications of that for effective practice in this kind of work. Let's take a look at the ripple effect theory of change. You can see at the core of it is that parents have this experience of developing their knowledge and their skills and building their confidence, finding their voice, learning how the system works and how to make it work to improve opportunities for their children and families. And as a result of this, as our wonderful parent leaders have described, parents have this huge personal transformation, moving from being a worrier to a warrior, or a victim to a victor. and to band together and make change. It releases a tremendous amount of optimism and energy that then they move forward. They want to wage war. They want to take on the power. They want to make things better and more just and equitable for their children and families and neighborhoods. And so they begin to take collective action to address the inequities that they've discovered and have researched and realized aren't their own fault. And as a result of that, as they interact with all of these different public officials and community leaders, the way that community leaders see parents shifts from being, complainers and whiners to being people who have valuable knowledge about the problems and issues in their community and great ideas for solutions. And as a result, a lot of well-informed and responsible people are entering the civic arena and invigorating the community, the culture in their community and the civic quality of life, which has a very important effect on invigorating our democracy. So that's our ripple effect theory of change. And let's take a look at some of the impacts, which together tell the story of a parent leader's journey from feeling isolated and helpless to becoming a powerful leader. They develop deep, supportive social connections that resemble a second family, and they discover their own worthiness and voice, that they have something to offer, that they are people who deserve to be heard, and they understand that the blame for their circumstances shifts. It's not all their fault that they find themselves in difficult or adverse circumstances. They're understanding that policies and systems like inequitable access to childcare and difficulty and barriers in applying for subsidies for childcare or getting their children into good early childhood programs are barriers to their opportunity that can be addressed. And then we go on to learn that as they begin to work with one another, they start to understand and appreciate the differences that they see among their other parent leaders and in their community across race or education level, income, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, country of origin. All of these things crop up, and people understand that we're all just people together. And they, instead of seeing this as a problem, start to value the diversity. So many parent leaders have told that to me, that was a very powerful thing for them to learn about people who are different from them and take action together for community change. And this has the effect of expanding the vision for our families of what's possible for them and their community, that they're not stuck living in a dangerous environment with poor schools, that they can band together with others and take action. And this has a positive family strengthening impact. And their children are inspired watching their parents put on those capes and go up to the State House and demonstrate and confront political leaders and demand accountability for quality of programs. And they begin to earn that new respect as, as a role model for their children and their family, and as a go-to person in the community, somebody who deserves to wear that cape and be seen as a superhero for rising above their circumstances and inspiring others to do the same. So what practices did these parent leadership initiatives use to bring about such profound and lasting impacts on parent leaders and their families and communities? Again and again, across all the 7 groups, as I read the report, We heard the parents talking about how important it is to meet parents' needs and goals by fostering their well-being and building on their strengths and creating a community that's like a supportive family, that's welcoming and free of blame, and that appreciates and validates and affirms their efforts and who they are and the cultures that they come from. And that has a unifying effect that develops, solidarity, a sense of positive identity and pride in one's culture, and raising awareness about inequities in society and how they can be addressed. And this has a powerful empowering effect, that intentionally empowering parents, telling them they can have an impact, that they can carry the mayor's phone number in their cell phone, that they can write that letter or go seek a meeting or attend a board meeting or mount a demonstration, that developing those knowledge and skills, they use that information to interact directly with community leaders and gain their respect and attention. And then they create responsible, ongoing, stable support. So many of these PLIs have become for their parent leaders a safe haven, a place where they're always welcome back, a place where if they've run into some difficulties, they can come and get support and encouragement and have their needs met and so on. And that these 5 practices that lead to impact are important findings with implications for all sorts of organizations that do work with children and families. So again, I want to thank you all for your incredibly hard work to write this report, write your reports and get those insights and really reflect on them and think about how you can continue your work even more powerfully and be more effective and affect lasting change in our country and in your communities. So thank you. My hat's off to you.
Thank you.
Sarah, do we have some questions?
We do. Thanks, everyone. And just a reminder, if other people have questions, there is a Q&A box along the bottom panel, along the very bottom of your screen. You should be able to click there and type in your questions, and we'll read them out loud for the panelists. So we have a question here from Jessamine Louise, and she says, "Hi, everyone. It's been great to experience the power and inspiration of these initiatives' impact on parent leaders. Not surprisingly, I'm curious about how the process of being involved in designing and implementing the evaluation has impacted each of the parent leaders that presented today. What did it mean for them to be a part of this participatory evaluation process?"
Gee, our parent leaders, do you think you can just, in a sentence or two? Rose has already spoken to that, so maybe we'll go to the other 4. Shani?
Wow. So for us, it really gave us insight into what our parents not only thought about us, but thought about themselves after the training. Because most evaluations, you ask how we did. And this evaluation process gave us the chance to ask the parent, how are you feeling? How are you different?
Right.
What changes have you made? And where do you see, yourself going forward from the training that you received from us? So just to hear from our parents how it's affecting their day-to-day and not just how we did, is really a powerful, is very powerful to understand what impact you're having on a person, not only them, but their community, how the work that you choose to do and bring the parents in to receive, how it really, really and truly affects what they do day to day.
And that's so important to know, isn't it?
It's very important to know. I mean, it was a lot of aha moments, like you even think to ask the parent some of the things.
Erica, do you have something you want to add to that about your experience with this and what you learned?
I would just say that it was so encouraging to hear just consistent messages from the members at Olay. We work on several different issue areas. So childcare access and increasing childcare teacher wages is just one of the issue areas. And so to hear consistent feedback across issue areas, that was just so encouraging to us. And also, you know, to learn what we can do better is also encouraging, because that allows us to then hear from our membership, hear from the parents and the citizens and, you know, and others, the fact that we need to be more explicit about how our work affects gender and racial equity. That then in turn allows us to be self-reflective and realize, you know, we're not explicit in that area. How can we do better? What can we do more so that we can continue to have these big policy wins to increase access to childcare, to do those things, but then it also in turn, not only have an endorsement process for others running for office, but encourage our own members to run for office, right? And so I would say that has been one of the big impacts going through this work, is to realize, you know, we have a big impact, and we knew, right? But we realized how strong our members are, and you know, how much how big their appetite is for politics, and to in turn encourage them to run for office, I think is going to be one of the exciting things that we do moving forward.
Thank you. Luva?
So to echo my parent leader friends, this whole journey was encouraging, it was motivating, it was just insightful. So often you don't realize, or you don't see sometimes, or you don't feel like a program like a PLTI or any of the programs, you know, with the ladies here, you don't know how effective it's going to be, or what impact it will have on parents, and what the outcome will be. And so when you, as a parent, if you have to commit to a 20-21-week program, you don't know what people are getting out of it, and you just hope that they are getting something out of it. So it was very encouraging, insightful to interview the parent leaders afterwards, like how we did, and to just hear their stories, and just to hear their thoughts about the journey, you know, to hear after PLTI, I gained this knowledge, I gained this information, I'm able to do this, I'm empowered, I feel confident as a parent leader. Because as Rose said, you know, as we know that when parents are at the forefront, we're gonna make it happen, right? Because it's, you know, it's about our children, it's about our community, and we want change. So we know that, and often we're not recognized. But when you hear parents say, I'm able to speak confidently at my superintendent's office, to hear a parent say, I'm able to speak confidently to my son's teacher about an IEP plan, to hear someone say, you know what, I was able to write my legislator and I got a response, and now I'm having a meeting. That's empowerment. That makes you feel good. Like you feel like this program and the curriculum that's being given is working, you know, and it's just a day by day, step by step, but it's working because the results are phenomenal. And, you know, there's so many stories amongst, I'm pretty sure all of us here on this panel, that we could just share how these programs had an impact on people, you know, whether small or big, it had an impact. So the whole journey was just a phenomenal thing. For me to see it and hear it, just made me feel like, you know, we're doing the right thing. And so we continue to do the work to make our community much better.
Oh, thank you. Sonia, you want to have the last word here?
Sure. I think that being involved with this, it was really, really great. It really caused parent ambassadors to really look at our program. We knew that we were really affecting the lives of our parents, but we didn't know how deeply we were changing their lives. And now we're seeing that, you know, their children are really becoming involved in talking at their schools and sharing their stories and really starting to become advocates. And we've really realized that through the program that we have, we're really starting to break those cycles and help parents with the resources that they need to get out of poverty and move forward in their lives. Like we said, our parents are going back to schools and they're getting jobs that really recognize their worth. To reflect on what a lot of the other parent leaders have said, we have parents that are now running for school boards, and we had one that ran for Senate and just barely missed it, but used our parents to help her really work through her campaign. And it's really humbling to see the effect that all of our programs are really having on parents and the effect that parents are having on communities. And they're becoming now, like you said, that go-to person when there are questions. So it's just been amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, other questions?
Yeah, this next question is from Sandy Mendoza, and she asks, hello all, thank you for being such leaders of light. My question is, as you reflected on the work, what, if anything, would you have done differently in your approach with parent leaders?
Who would like to take that one on? Rose, what would you have done differently in your approach with parent leaders now that you know what you know from the participatory evaluation?
So one thing is I would have had more time to reach more parents, because it was so awesome that our parents were like, can we do this all the time? And we did a number of group interviews also. And so it helped to even forge deeper relationships among the parents, and they were able to even share resources from community to community. So I would definitely bring it to scale. But we have 5 campaigns. And so I would, in each campaign, pick out the relative experience that pertain to that campaign to really highlight what parents have done around restorative justice, school to prison pipeline, what they've done in the stepping out of poverty, what they've done in early child care and education, what they've done in the food deserts. I would really do a deeper dive, and I'm hoping that going forward, we might be able to do some of that work just to show that this is just the beginning of what is some amazing work, and not just in Illinois, all across the country. So yeah, I'd go a little bit deeper.
Let's go through this to one other. Shani, what might you have done differently had you known what you know now?
So from some of our aha moments, some things that we felt that parents should know and get and understand that they didn't. So we've looked at our curriculum and are editing our curriculum to make sure that the messages that we really want them to walk away with, that we know for sure that we've told them that, and make sure that they understand that their power lies within their voice, and to be active, not just at home or at school, but in your community and in the state where you reside. And it's important for us to make sure that we tell them that they're advocates, not just assume that they understand that they're advocates. And so to make sure that they understand everything that we want them to understand during our training, every point that we really feel that they should get, we know we now need to make sure that we're saying it and not just assuming that
Right,
they
and
understand
being
those
more
points.
explicit, right?
Yes,
The
yes.
need for their advocacy and the fact that this is work about equity.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah. Other questions, Sarah?
Yeah, here's a question from Linda Parmalee. Hi, Linda. Excited to be part of this launch and learn in more detail about each group's involvement and enthusiasm. How do you see continuing to provide this evaluation process for your own organization or for the parent leadership and organizing field moving forward?
Sonia, you want to talk about that?
Yes,
How do
thank
you see using this kind of evaluation work moving forward?
So we realized how important this evaluation really was. So we have already started, and we are going back through our cohorts, and we are actually going to try to interview a lot more of our parents. But what we've started to do, because we just finished our 11th cohort and are just starting our 12th, we are going to go back and interview all of the parents from year 11 and then start working our way backwards.
Ah, so you're going to try to reach every one of your parents?
Yes, yes, we are.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay, because you felt that what you learned was so valuable, you want even more of it.
Yes, we do. Yes.
And that might be another way of contacting you and re-enlivening some of your alumni who might have, fallen away into other things that came up in their lives.
Yes, and we did realize when we did the interviews the first time that those parents that we reached out to, our alumni parents, it kind of reinvigorated them, and now we're seeing them becoming more active again. So I just think they needed that little bit of outreach there, and it really does show that we really have to do something more strategic with our alumni.
Erica, do you have something to add on this?
I think that's really exciting, Sonia, that y'all are going to go back and talk to all of your parents. What we also had a similar experience in that when we went back to interview some of our leaders, we made sure to interview some of our leaders that had gone through some of our citizenship classes from years past, and in turn seen that same thing where they were coming back and getting involved in our work again. And so that was really exciting and something that we're thinking through moving forward. How do we reach out to some of those old some of those folks that went through some of our previous courses or hadn't been involved in a while to but also thinking about, so in learning some of the things that we can do better and implementing some of those things, we want to then go back and reevaluate to see, are we, the baby also has lots to say. Are we, did we do a good job of implementing or the things that, our members have said they want to see us do differently? So to reevaluate again and make sure that, we're doing a good job at implementing the things that we've learned.
Thank you. Lula, do you want to put the last word on this?
I think for us too, we also want to just, we're going to continue to, survey our parents and ask questions because we want to be a support to them, right? We want to be able to support them in what they're doing and where they're going and where they're at. We want to be able to meet them at their needs. So if we are, constantly asking and surveying our parents, we'll be able to find out how we could be of support.
Thank you. And that was a wonderful question, Linda Parmalee. Thank you. Thank you for your support for this work over all these years.
And can I quickly put something?
Oh, sure, Rose.
So we've already been talking about interviewing the next generation because we're already seeing impact. For example, at my daughter's college, she got a group of folks together and they got the dean out of there who wasn't really concerned about the student. And we've had other parents talk about how their children are advocating for themselves in school. So we need to pull something together to check out this next generation.
Oh, wow. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
Yeah, I don't know if that's good.
Other questions, Sarah?
Actually, Rose, that's a great segue to this next question. So Stephanie Lowe says, this has been such a great session. Thank you all for taking the time to share with us. I'm curious about extrapolating this model with students. Have any of you worked to train or help student groups to similarly be empowered to make change in their schools and their communities?
Luva, I know that Parent Leadership Training Institute has a CLTI.
Yes, so we do have a CLTI, which is a phenomenal program for our young children when our parents bring their kids to the program. And we see many of our parent leader children doing great things in the community. For example, just recently here in Rochester, New York, one of our school districts, had some issues with budgeting and some other issues with just the way the schools are. And one of our parent leaders, Ricardo Adams, his daughter literally has taken charge of this, and she is a graduate of the CLTI program. And she's out there hustling and bustling. She's gathering the groups of young people to make change. She's making the student voice heard loud here in Rochester, New York, where they hear that what the student needs are and that they want change in their schools and their classrooms and their teachers. And so her going through our program allowed her to have that confidence and that ability to speak up for what she wants. And now she is passing that on and sharing that information with other young people in the community. And they're doing great things.
Anyone else want to talk about that?
Yes, so here in Mississippi, with our graduation ready program, it is for middle school students and their parents. So where middle school students and parents have conversations. And our chapter in Greenwood were facing consolidation, and they did a youth community forum where the youth were able to voice their concerns and their questions about the consolidation because it was going to affect them. So they got a chance to have their voice heard and help with the transition for the students.
Wow. I wonder how many school districts do that, to talk to students about the implications of some of these, big changes they're considering doing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's important because it affects them. So we're here in Jackson, there's some schools being merged because our population has gone down, so we need less schools. So I'm in conversations with the superintendent to do the same type of thing here in Jackson so the students can talk and voice their concerns or questions that they might have before they go to their new school.
Okay, Sarah, any more questions?
I think we may be just about out of time for questions. I know that Wendy's got a few points to make to wrap up and share some resources, but thank you all for these great questions. I'm sorry we didn't get through quite all of them. Thank you, Sarah. And I agree, these are really interesting questions and a great dialogue. Thank you so much. And please, if we weren't able to answer them, feel free to still reach back out to us so we can answer your questions at a later time. But we just wanted to give us some time to wrap up our conversation today, talk about some implications from the study. So the study strongly suggests that all efforts to engage families would be more successful if they create a welcoming, safe space for parents to connect with others and share their struggles. Such a second family strengthens families by affirming their value and contributions, connecting them to economic and social resources, building their capacity to support children's learning and development, listening to their ideas, and also developing their voice. So like people were talking, you could see that theme of safe spaces and family and how important that is. And so that's something to think about. And we also wanted to share with you some resources related to this work. So the Parent Leadership Indicators Project has a landing page. So if you wanted to look at this book and book summaries, if you're not able to get to the whole book right away, there's a detailed indicator framework, sample interview questions, a self-assessment tool, and also results from parent leaders pre and post surveys that were part of this work. So this is a really rich project. There's a lot of resources you can check out, and I really hope you can. And if you have any questions, you can ask us. We welcome them. We also wanted to spend some time talking about some of the lead organizations in this work. So the NYU Metro Center, Policy for Research and Evaluation team. We have our link there where you can reach us. Again, if you want to find out more about us, our work. We also partner closely with Dialogues in Action, who did this training for our partners and does this kind of participatory evaluation work. And their link is there as well. We also worked with the Family Leadership Network at Choice for All, and their link is there as well. And just wanted to also spotlight our partner, Danielle Asher, who's with this organization. She went through the Dialogues in Action training with Long Island before we started the Parent Leadership Evaluation Network. And she was our inspiration for partnering with Dialogues in Action. And she also served as a trainer and coach. So thank you, Danielle. And so just wanted to share with you, yes, our organizations and overall findings. And thank you again for attending this book launch. Thank you to Anne. Thank you to our wonderful panelists and attendees. And this concludes our book launch. We hope you have a wonderful day. And we hope to hear from you. Any other questions about this panel or the resources, we look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you again.